In the heart of Africa, where the dry winds of the savannah sweep across golden plains and the cries of wild animals echo through the dusk, a story unfolded that would touch the soul of every creature who heard it. A cheetah, sleek and spotted, once a symbol of speed and instinct, was now walking slowly, purposefully, through the dust. But this time, he wasn't stalking prey. This time, he was carrying grief. Clenched tightly between his jaws was a torn, old ranger cap, faded by sun and time. He moved with a grace that betrayed his sorrow, stepping through tall grass as if retracing memories. Finally, he stopped at a grave. Gently, the cheetah placed the cap upon the mound of earth. Then, lifting his face to the orange skies, he let out a soft, mournful cry. It wasn't a roar. It was a farewell. This story does not begin with death. It begins with a bond. Years ago, a man named Jonathan Hayes left behind a wealthy life in England and came to Africa with one purpose: to protect its wildlife. He wasn't a tourist or a thrill seeker. He was a guardian. Over time, he became known as the Ghost Guardian, a man who moved through forests and savannas like a shadow, protecting animals from the threats they could never understand: poachers, fences, and greed. One evening, after responding to reports of gunshots near the reserve's western boundary, Jonathan stumbled upon a horrific sight. A mother cheetah, her legs tangled in wire, her eyes frozen in fear. And beside her, a cub, no older than a few weeks, shivering and crying out for a mother who would never respond. The rangers moved to tranquilize the cub, but Jonathan raised a hand. "Let me try," he said softly. He approached slowly, lowering himself to the cub's level. He didn't speak. He didn't force. He simply placed a bowl of milk on the ground and waited. Minutes turned to hours. The cub hissed, swiped, and shrank into himself. But eventually, hunger defeated fear. He crawled toward the bowl, took a sip, and that was the beginning. Jonathan named the cub Rafiki, which means friend in Swahili. And that name would come to define their story. Rafiki grew stronger, faster, and fiercer with each passing week, but no matter how wild he became, he always came back to Jonathan. He was never caged. He was free. And still, he chose to stay near the man who gave him life. As the years passed, Rafiki became a legend in the reserve. Tourists sometimes glimpsed him from afar, his golden coat glinting in the sun, but few knew the truth, that he was more than a cheetah. He was family. One afternoon, during the height of summer, Jonathan set out alone. There had been reports of snares in the Eastern Trail, and he didn't want to risk his team. "Just a short walk," he said. But hours later, he hadn't returned. The sun began to fall. The walkie-talkie remained silent. Concerned, the rangers began to search. Drones flew overhead. Jeeps combed the paths. Nothing. Until a cry pierced the silence. It wasn't human. It was Rafiki. He was pacing wildly near the old trail, his cries sharp, desperate. When the rangers followed, they found Jonathan lying unconscious near a cliff, dehydrated, his skin blistered by the sun. Rafiki sat beside him, refusing to move. They rushed Jonathan to camp, but the damage had been done. His heart was weak, his body tired. As the sun rose the next day, Jonathan slipped away in his sleep, holding Rafiki's old feeding bottle in his hands. The news shattered the sanctuary. Rangers cried openly. Villagers came to light candles. Rafiki didn't eat. He didn't drink. He lay in the spot where Jonathan had last stood. On the day of the funeral, A small ceremony was held under the baobab tree where Jonathan once told stories of his youth. As the coffin was lowered, Rafiki emerged from the trees. No one had called him. He came on his own. He carried the ranger's cap in his mouth, walked straight to the grave, and laid it gently on the mound of soil. Then he sat, silent, still. That night, Rafiki didn't return to his usual place in the wild. He slept beside the grave. And the next night, and the one after that. For weeks, he remained close, as if guarding the resting place of his only friend. Rangers noticed strange things. Rafiki would walk the patrol routes that Jonathan used to take. He would chase scavengers away from wounded animals. He would even stand by injured elephants until help arrived. Some whispered, "Jonathan lives on, inside the cheetah." Each morning, as dawn broke, Rafiki would sit before the grave and watch the sun rise. He never touched the cap again. It remained there, untouched, sacred. This isn't a tale of fantasy. This happened. A real cheetah. A real man. A bond that broke the boundaries of language, of species, of death itself. In the wild, where survival is often selfish and cruel, there lived a cheetah who mourned, who remembered, who loved. And that is what makes this story unforgettable. So if you believe animals can't feel, can't love, can't grieve, look into Rafiki's eyes. He didn't just lose a guardian. He lost his family. And still, he remains. A silent sentinel of a grave. A legacy written not in stone, but in love. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Animal Survival Stories and help us continue sharing real stories of compassion, loyalty, and the deep, mysterious love between humans and animals. Because every heartbeat in the wild has a story to tell.